Okay, so the materials we'll be using this rope for the handles. We're putting it inside the handles. These are the handle straps. I already went ahead to line it with the same faux leather piece. And then these are the lining top straps for the lining pieces. This is the two main exterior piece. So we have two main exterior pieces. There are no interfacing on that one. And then this is the zip we'll be using for the inner zip pocket. This is the zipper lining, and then this is the pocket lining, and this is the rest of the lining. So for the lining pieces, I went ahead to add I fused interfacing to them. Anyway, so next we're going to be processing the handles, and what we want to do is that we want to mark 1.5 inch from the bottom, and then want to mark another 1.5 inch from that 1.5 inch, in total 3. So you have 1.5 and then 1.5 again you mark 1.5 and then you mark 1.5. So it kind of looks like this when you are done. So you have 1.5 here. We're just going to be sewing just this 1.5 parts. Will not be sewing any other part for now. So we're going to sew just that part, which the length is about 1.5 inches. Okay, we're not sewing any other thing apart from there, just that part on both sides. And the reason being that by the time we want to fold our handle, it comes in handy, and by the time I want to sew this handle to our main body piece, it comes very, very handy, and you'll see why. So this is what we have after sewing the 1.5 on all parts of the handles, each end. Okay, now this part is actually optional. The reason why I'm doing this is because my handle piece is not light, it is not heavy, sorry. The faux leather I used for this handle is actually very, very light and soft, and I do not want it to just be so flat by the time I sew it to my bag, which is why I'm just adding a little puff to it. Not, I won't call it a puff, actually, just something small. So I'm just adding this little EVA foam, which is Mako, just very small. Here I measured 3/8 of an inch on each side and just placed it. I'm just going to repeat it here so you understand. So I marked 3/8 of an inch on each side. So I have a guide as to where I am going to put this very little backing. So it's inside my box like that, and then I'm going to add a little glue to make it stick. And this is what we have. So next thing, I'm going to sew it. So without this backing that I added here, I would have been able to just fold it and sew to perfection. But however, this little backing I added is going to make it a little bit difficult to fold, but you can also fold it. And then I'll start sewing from that mark I made. I'm going to start sewing about 3/8 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch. So that's about a couple of stitches before the mark I made, just like this. So I'm not going to start directly on that mark that I made. I'm going to start 3/8 of an inch before it. And it is important to do a back stitch here because you do not want your stitch to start pulling off. When you want to fold this, you can go ahead to clip it to make it easy for you. I didn't do it, but I would advise that you do it. Do not use gum for this process, please. Do not use glue for this process as well, because we are going to be putting something else inside, so we want the inside of it to be smooth so it's easy for things to move inside. Okay, so please do not use gum and do not use a glue to hold it. I know it may seem easier, but except you're not putting anything inside to give it a little bit of puff and sturdiness, then you can use your glue and you can use your gum. However, if you are using something else inside, please do not use glue or do not use gum. So I'm going to sew all the way to the other end and then do a couple of back stitches, and then we're done with our handle. So this is just a thread I attached to my needle. It's actually very easy for me to use this needle compared to using any other thing. You can use, some people use nails, some people use different kind of thing, whatever you feel is easy for you to be able to pass through, but I like using needles. And then I just kind of sew. It's actually not a very tight sewing, just enough to pass it. And you can see the kind of needle I use here. This is not a regular needle. It doesn't have a pointy end. Okay, I don't know if you can see, it doesn't have a pointy end. You can put it doesn't hurt your hand, nothing. I literally use it when I'm hand stitching. Okay, so it's just easy, because if you use something pointy, it might start sticking to your forehead and you do not want that. So I just pass it through and it just goes smoothly. There is no obstruction, there is no pointy end that might hook to a corner. It just goes very smoothly, just like you can see. And I always make sure that my thread is long enough and strong enough. So this is not a regular tailor thread. It is not even my machine thread. Okay, it is the one I use when I want to hand stitch. And then when you bring your needle out from the other side, you want to pull on the thread just like that. It's actually quite easy and very satisfying. So you just pull on the thread and it comes out. You can go ahead to adjust this rope that you are putting inside. If you don't want it to show at all, you have to make some arrangements and cut it to your desired length. Don't forget to burn the edges depending on what you are using. Me, I like using this rope, and when you cut it, it has hairs, so I always burn the ends of it. Next, we are going to attach the handles to the exterior pieces, and we're going to go back to our pattern piece, and basically just mark where our handles are, just like this. So I'm just marking out where I want to put my handles. So it's going to serve as a guide, just serve as a guide as to where I want my handles to be. I already marked it. It's actually very bright, so I don't think you can see, but I try to zoom as much as I can so you are able to see it. And then I want to follow the guide. Use a little glue to hold it in place. And then go on the other side. And then go in with the glue again. Make sure that it is straight and aligned properly. Now you can see where our stitch comes in, right? That's half an inch stitch that we did. So you can continue from there. If you do not have any stitch, it would have been very hard for you to stitch this. So you can continue from that part. That is the main point of having that half an inch stitch. So you want to try and open up as much as you can so you can see what you are working with. This part you have to be careful. You do not have to just start. If you are using a pedaling machine, you don't have to start pedaling very, very fast. You just have to be careful. You can even just use your hand to roll your machine. Try to match the stitch and use the same stitching length that you use when you sewed your 1/2 inch. Okay, and then you want to go very gently. Basically, it's like a continuation of that 1/2 inch stitch that you made. That is basically just it. So it's a continuation of that. Take your time. So maybe you might be wondering that you haven't seen the outline of that, should I call it like a stabilizer now, that I used. That's because I'm not exactly sewing along the lines of it. Okay, the goal was not to sew along the lines of it so you can see the outline of it. It was basically just to give it a little bit of puff, because it is very flat. This faux leather is very flat, and I do not want it to just be so flat and pressed on the exterior. I wanted it to have a little bit of body, which is why I added something inside. So when you do it all the way to the other end, try your best to match this stitch, and it is important that you do a good back stitch, because you do not want your handles to be falling off or loosen. So you need to do a good back stitch. I'm going to go one more time again. Match your needle to the stitch, like start at a good stitching point. Do a couple of back stitches, very important. Use the same stitching length you used when you sewed that little 1/2 inch and a half gap. And then you want to continue. Take your time. Because you want your stitch to go as flawlessly as you possibly can. It's like a continuous sewing, so you can't tell that you stopped at some point. So when you get to the other end, do a couple of back stitch like so, and then you are done. This part might be tough, which is why I did not speed up this particular part of this video, because I wanted you to see how slow I was actually going in real time, and I did not want you to feel or miss any detail. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So we have a little bit of loose thread over there that had gathered. You want to go and get just a little pin or a needle, and try to bring out as much of that loose thread as you possibly can. If it is enough for you to use your scissors to cut, you can go ahead to cut it, but I like to burn my thread. Some people say it's not good and it's kind of like a bad habit, but I guess they don't know how to do it properly. So I like to burn the thread just like that. And there you have it. So I'm going to do it on this other side. Try and bring out as much loose thread. Please don't loosen your stitch, okay? Please do not loosen your stitch. If you have a loose thread, you can actually see that there's a loose thread there, and you can like bring it out to cut it off or to burn it. Okay, so here we have it. Our handles have been attached, and this is what we have. So you have two pieces with handles attached to them. There's really nothing much to add to the exterior, so this is just basically what we have for the exterior piece. And now we're going to join the exterior pieces together. I'm just going to mark or find the middle of each exterior piece simply by making this notch at the middle. And then I'm going to go ahead to pin them together so I can sew it. I am able to pin this material, this faux leather, because it's actually quite light. There are some faux leathers that are not so light. In cases like that, you will have to clip them together. And here I'm going to sew it. When you're sewing, ensure that you're removing the pins or clips, whatever you use. Again, in this part, I would not recommend you using glue or gum, although it might make things better. And the reason is because when we are done sewing it together, we are going to open it up and open the allowance, the stitch allowance, just like this, so that it's flat, which is why we made sure that that part was 1/2 inch, because we wanted to be able to do it. So now I can apply gum to make it stick by the time I open it, and then you just sort of open it up all the way through. Open it up, make sure that it is flat, and then this is just like a strap, a scrap fold that I used. It's actually very, very light, super light, and I'm going to use it to cover it because I'm also going to top stitch. And you can see that I avoided the exterior stitch allowance. You see, it's just fitting in between. I avoided the stitch allowances just like that, and then I applied gum on both sides, placed them together, and then now I am going to top stitch from the back. So this is how it looks from the back. The reason why I added that scrap material is because I wanted to have a little weight to it by the time I sew it, and I do not want the stitch to be exposed, so I wanted a little bit of covering. Now I'm just going to sew all the way through, top stitch all the way through, and then on the other side too. This is only needed if your main body piece is divided into two. If you have just one long piece, you do not need to do this at all. You do not need to do this because it will just be one body piece completely. So I'm only doing this because I attached two pieces together. And then we are done. This is what it looks like, and then this is the inside of it. So for the next step, I'm going to be pinning the important corners together here, and then the sides, because I'm going to be sewing the sides, so I'll be pinning them together. First, I'm going to look for the middle. You just want to make a small notch You don't want to cut all the way through, just a little bit at the middle there, so that you can match the middle to each other. And then I'll pin the sides and pin every other part that is important. So I went ahead to pin this bottom first. You see, I matched the notch, the small notch that we have there, to each other, pin them together. Now I'm going to pin the middle as well. Just like that. And then now I'm going to pin the sides of it. Just to hold them in place. And then the other side, you can pin or you can use a clip to hold it. For the lighter materials, it will be easier for you to just pin them together. So now that our sides are pinned together, I am going to sew just the sides, and that is all. So after sewing it, now I want to open up this back. So by the time you open it up, you get it straight, just like this. Okay, sometimes they don't always come out straight, but you most likely get it straight when all of your patterns and calculations and measurements, allowances and all of that is correct. You get it straight. But if it doesn't come out straight, that's fine. You'll be able to sew it, and then you can cut off the excess. So I'm just going to pin this in place, and then the other way. And just like that. So by the time I want to sew this, I would have to open up this seam allowance a little bit to be able to sew it, so that there will be no bulk moving to one particular side. So for the next one, I'm also going to do the other side, just like I did that. I only slowed that other one down so you can actually see what I mean. Again, you can get it in a straight line, and then you pin it together. So it's easy for you to sew. So this is basically what we are aiming for, just like this. The middle is still pinned together. Now we can go ahead to sew it, and I'm not going to speed up this part so you can see how it goes. Remember that you have to open up that stitch. You don't have to sew it like this necessarily. It's just simply because of the way I pinned it. It's going to be easier for me to remove the pins this way, so it is more of my own side. You'll be able to stitch on the other side, any side that you want, but just make sure that that seam allowance there is open enough. And then you want to do a couple of back stitches and then continue. And then that is it. So you can even see that the stitch allowance is open, just like that. That is on the side. You know, the one we're trying to open is the one that is on the side. It is open, sewn together. Now let's do the other side. You open up that stitch allowance on the side and try to match it up with the other one. Just going to zoom out for a bit. You want to do a couple of back stitches, so you don't have thread loose at the ends. Then you want to open up and then sew all the way through. And there you have it. So this is what we have after all of that. Don't forget that we have a pin there. We'll be removing shortly. Now we just want to fold it. So we have our folded edge at the top, which was the plan all along. And then when we are at this side, we are going to open the same allowances again at the top, just like we did at the back. And then now I'm just going to fold all the way through. So you just take your time and then you fold it. And then you want to make sure that you are following the lines and everything. And you can see that with this our stitch, with this allowance that we have at the top here, I already went ahead to fold them together, open it up, and then I'll basically just go around it. So you see how it looks. We have a folded edge and it is not rough. Okay, so again we're going to fold and open that same allowance there at the sides, and I'm going to repeat it on the other side as well. So here, now that our top is folded, our top edge is folded, we just have to bring it inside out. And this one is going to be easy because the faux leather is actually quite light. Just bring it out, push out your edges at the bottom there, and then you want to repeat on the other side as well. Cut off any loose thread that you might have. And there you have it. Your exterior piece is ready, just like that.